Hello and welcome to the Circling the Bases podcast from NBC Sports EDGE. This is our weekly MLB Power Rankings show where we break down my weekly Power Rankings column that goes up on NBC Sports EDGE every Tuesday. We're recording this Monday evening on July 4th for context as we talk about wins and losses and stats and whatnot. I hope everyone had a good 4th of July weekend, assuming you're catching this audio on Tuesday, July 5th. I'm Drew Silva. Joining me here and every week throughout the season is my co-host, Janice Scurio. Welcome in, Janice. We're now into July with the All-Star break fast approaching. Is there anything specific that you're looking forward to from around the baseball world this coming week?
Absolutely. There is a matchup Wednesday that I think will be particularly interesting. So Joe Ryan is going to head up against Lance Lynn right here in Chicago. So in his last outing, Joe Ryan allowed just 2 hits, walked 1, struck out 7, one of his best starts on Friday night against the Orioles. Finished with a pretty strong 71.9% strike rate. So looked pretty decent there. As for Lance Lynn did make his 4th start of the season Friday after returning from the injured list. Definitely one of his better starts yet. Kept the Giants off the board for 6 innings and eventually got to a 1-0 win over the Giants. So that was very exciting. But Lynn is still working himself back into form after his injured list stint. So I'm just expecting him to get better from here.
Yeah, that's a big series between the White Sox and Twins. It's early, but it'll go a long way, it feels like, to determining the American League Central race. We'll talk a little White Sox later in the show. They are one of the biggest risers this week. Before we get into all the rankings, weekends are better with MLB Sunday leadoff coverage presented by Uber Eats. Catch the Angels take on the Orioles in Baltimore this Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, live on NBC and Peacock. To learn more, go to peacock.com/MLB. And if you want a chance to win $25,000 on the game, download the NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet and enter Sunday's free Grand Slam Pick'em contest. All right, let's jump into this week's Power Rankings. As usual, we will do a deep dive on each of the teams in the top 5 and then discuss the 3 biggest risers and 3 biggest fallers from the previous week to the current week. If you want rankings and observations on all 30 clubs, check out the full Power Rankings column on Tuesday. Usually goes up late morning, early afternoon, depending on how long it takes me to actually write the thing. And there are so many games on this July 4th. Like, I think only 4 teams were off. This is like a really hard show to prep for, and it's going to be like a hard column to write because I can't do much pre-writing. So expect that column probably early afternoon rather than late morning, and expect us to not be totally prepared for this show because there are just so many games that have already happened and are going on right now. But yeah, regular listeners get the drift. We kind of do this on the fly. All right, start us out, Janice, with who we have at number 1 overall this week.
Absolutely. The number 1 overall still going strong, the New York Yankees. So the Yankees did lose on Sunday 2-0 to the Guardians, and that ended a span of 20 games, just playing straight, no scheduled off days in that 20-game span. So in that 20-game period, they fared 14-6. So they've won series against the Rays twice, the Blue Jays, Athletics, Guardians, and Tampa Bay and Oakland as well.
Yeah, they went 22-6 in June and then won 2 of 3 at Cleveland this past weekend to kick off the month of July. As we chat here on Monday evening, a 13-game lead on first place in the American League East, a 99.9% chance to make the postseason per Baseball Reference. Baseball Reference also has the Yankees at 24.9% to win the World Series, which seems like a crazy number. But yeah, that's their algorithm that works out that way. I mean, it's been an incredible first half for the Yankees, winning games in all sorts of ways. 25 comeback victories, I believe, or maybe it's even up to 26 now. Whatever the number, it's way more than any other team. Aaron Judge, Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton are leading the charge offensively. They all have 20-plus home runs already. Only 6 teams in MLB history have featured 3 players with 20 or more homers through the first 80 games of a season. That would be the 1949 Giants, the 1959 Senators, the 2000 Angels, the 2001 Cleveland Indians, the 2003 Braves, and the 2022 Yankees. They need to just go 42 and 40 the rest of the way to reach 100 wins. So really just have to play 500 ball the rest of the way, and they're going to be a 100 win team. It's a rout in the American League East in that division. Maybe the Red Sox or Blue Jays can make it a closer race, but the gap right now at basically the midway point is very wide. So no surprise at the top. It's yet another week with the number one spot for the Yankees.
Holding strong at number 2, actually climbing up 2 spots from number 4, the Houston Astros. So the Astros did a pretty interesting thing on Sunday, struck out 20 batters, setting a franchise record for a 9-inning game. But otherwise, they 2-run, 2-out walk-off homer off Ryan Tepera. Jeremy Pena hit that to send the Astros to a 4-2 win. So really enjoyable team to watch. And they always seem to be doing interesting things every week.
This has been an eye-opening stretch from the Astros. The current 7-game winning streak, a 15-3 record over their last 18 games, and many of those games have been against worthy contending opponents. A lot of Yankees and Mets and White Sox. They just finished up a 3-game sweep of the division rival Angels. And in that series against Anaheim, the Astros set a new MLB record by generating 48 strikeouts in a 3-game series that did not feature any extra inning games. 20 strikeouts alone, as you mentioned, on Sunday, and 2 homers from Jeremy Pena, one being that walk-off 2-run shot in the bottom of the 9th. Pena has picked up where he left off since returning from the injured list. He's still alive in the American League Rookie of the Year odds, but I don't know. Julio Rodriguez is kind of running away with that. We'll get into him a little bit later when we talk Mariners. Yordan Alvarez was named American League Player of the Month for June after batting .418 with a 13.46 OPS, 9 home runs, 28 RBIs, and 19 runs scored in a span of 23 games. And he just hit a walk-off homer against the Royals here on Monday evening before we hopped on. Alvarez has the top OPS of all MLB hitters on the season at 1063. I know that Aaron Judge is right now considered like the runaway favorite for AL MVP, and Shohei Ohtani is thought of as like the next best contender for that award, but I wouldn't rule out Alvarez if he keeps this going into the second half. He makes it look easy just hitting bombs. So beyond the ridiculous pitching they've gotten recently, really a historic level of pitching they've gotten recently, the Astros offense is definitely humming too. If anyone is going to unseat the Yankees at the top of these power rankings over the next handful of weeks, I think it could be the Astros.
At number 3, a pretty strong team right here, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They took 3 out of 4 games from the Padres over the weekend, and they finished that 4-game set now sitting 3.5 games ahead of the Padres in the National League West. Another pretty tightly contested race here. Padres are going to be consistently nipping at the heels of the Dodgers, I feel.
Yeah, the Dodgers almost completed that 4-game sweep of San Diego over the weekend before Craig Kimbrell got lit up in the top of the 9th inning on Sunday. Ultimately went as a 4-2 loss for Los Angeles. Man, over his last 19 appearances dating back to mid-May, Kimbrell has been scored upon more often than he has not been scored upon in those 19 appearances. He has 3 official blown saves and 4 losses in that stretch, to go along with a 6.62 ERA. So that's a problem, but it might be like the Dodgers' only real problem. Their starting pitching depth has been dinged up. Walker Buehler's going to be out for a while, but you wouldn't really know that by the numbers. The starters they've had filling in very admirably. And the Dodgers do have an easy slate coming up this week. 7 games at home against the visiting Rockies and then the visiting Cubs. Mookie Betts returned from the injured list on Sunday after missing only about 3 weeks with a cracked rib. So a pretty swift return for Betts. And he went 2 for 3 with 2 walks in his first game off the IL on Sunday against the Padres. Brought a 901 season OPS into play on Monday. We'll see what the Dodgers do about Kimbrell. Manager Dave Roberts said Sunday that he remains the primary closer, but a lower leverage role would probably make sense, even if it's just temporary to get him feeling better and feeling right. I know he's dealt with a back injury for the last couple of weeks, so that could be playing a role in this. Brusdar Gratterall, Evan Phillips might be better options, I think, to finish out leads. I recommended picking up Gratterall on last week's show, and I hope that people did. But yeah, another week at number 3 for the Dodgers. They got leapfrogged by the Astros, as we just outlined, but Los Angeles is holding strong in that 3rd spot.
Absolutely. I could have told you a little bit about Kimbrel's woes. I don't know if the Dodgers should use him in the 8th inning, though, just from my personal experience.
It's a good point. Yeah. I mean, the 9th inning is where he really thrives, and he's not really thriving there right now. It's possible that we're just near the very tail end of his career. I know he's relatively young, like he's been around for a long time, but what is he, 30, 31, 32? I could probably look that up. But yeah, let's move on to who we have at number 4.
At number 4, the New
Kimbrel's
York
34, by the way. He's not 32.
Okay. 34 is not old. Maybe it's baseball old, but generally not old.
No. From a 35-year-old, no, it's not old.
As a 36-year-old woman, yeah, I definitely do not agree that 34 is old. All right. So speaking of being old, I'm not sure where I'm going with this one. The New York Mets are number 4. Absolutely no connection there. But anyway, I found an interesting story about Eduardo Escobar. So he had been slumping pretty much all throughout the month of May. He changed his belt. And ever since he's gotten a different belt, he's now homered in 3 straight games since then. But as for the Mets, they took 2 out of 3 from the Rangers over the weekend, including Escobar's homer streak.
I think I lost your connection there right in the middle of the belt story, but
did you?
That sounds like typical baseball lore.
Yep. It was all about Eduardo Escobar's new belt and how it is helping him hit homers now.
This is the choppy analysis that people come to expect from our power ranking show. But yeah, the Mets, they got swept by the Astros in a 2-game series to begin last week's set of games, and then won 2 of 3 against the Rangers over the weekend. So nothing to get overly concerned about. Though if you take it back a bit further, the Mets have lost 6 of their last 10 entering play on Monday. That does not include their series opener on July 4th at Cincinnati, which is either probably just wrapped up or going on right now. The Mets are up 7-4 in the top of the 9th. So that was kind of an expected win in that series opener at Great American Ballpark. Max Scherzer will come off the IL to handle the second game of that series on Tuesday. He's going to be making his first start for the Mets since May 18th when he suffered a left oblique strain. He made 2 minor league rehab appearances at AA Binghamton for the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, which is one of the great team names in baseball, and struck out 8 batters over 4 2/3 innings in the second of those 2 rehab starts, went 80 pitches. So he should be able to go 90 plus pitches if the game script calls for it on Tuesday night against the Reds. Scherzer had a 2.54 ERA and 59-11 strikeout to walk ratio when he went on the IL in mid-May. Obviously a huge boost getting him back. And then there's also exciting news on the Jacob deGrom injury front, as he touched 101 miles per hour in his rehab debut on Sunday with single-A St. Lucie. Only worked 1 2/3 innings, but he gave up no hits, no walks, and struck out 5 of the 6 batters he faced. So it sounds like deGrom is back to his normal self, or very much in the process of getting there. Just now needs to build up his pitch count before a return sometime later this month. I think soon after the All-Star break, in between then and right at the end of July. He's recovered from the stress reaction in his right scapula, which is part of the shoulder. We all know what deGrom can be when he's healthy. He has a 1.94 ERA with 774 strikeouts over his last 581 major league innings dating back to the beginning of 2018. Edwin Diaz was just named NL reliever of the month for June. He's been lights out. So the Mets dropped to number 4 in the midst of a slightly rocky stretch, but they could be a better team in the second half than they were in the first half. Getting Scherzer and deGrom in the rotation at the same time for the first time, which is a scary thought for the rest of the NL East and the rest of the National League.
Right. The Atlanta Braves are number 5. Typically I lead off with the number, but I decided to, just
I like it. Mix it up.
Absolutely. Spoil things and announce the team first. So the Braves just fell short of a sweep of the Reds over the weekend. Charlie Morton on Sunday was able to, just hold the Reds hitless until the seventh inning. I really like the fact that he continues to go deep into his outings, and definitely keep the Braves in the ball game.
Yeah, up into the top 5 go the Braves. I started them at number 1 this year, coming off their World Series win in 2021. They pretty quickly dropped down the rankings after struggling to find much consistency throughout April and May, but there was that 14-game winning streak that kicked off the month of June, and now an overall 23-7 record over their last 30 games since the end of May. They took 2 of 3 at both Philly and Cincinnati last week. Now comes a 10-game homestand against the Cardinals, Nationals, and Mets. That series opener versus the Cards got underway a bit earlier before we hopped on here. I can check that out too. Braves are up 6-1 in the top of the 8th. I know they scored a lot of runs early, backing Kyle Wright. They were kind of hammering Dakota Hudson. And before the game, outfielder Eddie Rosario and reliever Tyler Matzik were both activated off the injured list. Those two played key roles in the run to the World Series last year. Rosario claiming 2021 NLCS MVP honors, and Matzik posting a 1.72 ERA over 13 postseason appearances with 24 strikeouts in 15 innings. Rosario had a brutal opening 2 weeks this year, and then went on the IL, but you can chalk that up to vision issues, which with laser surgery for his right retina. He showed pretty well in his rehab assignment, had a bunch of doubles and some walks. So obviously seeing the ball a whole lot better and can hopefully provide some pop for like the lower part of that lineup in Atlanta. Michael Harris II won NL Rookie of the Month for June after batting .347 with a .946 OPS, 13 extra base hits, 4 steals, 16 RBIs, and 18 runs scored in 27 games. He homered again on Sunday at Cincinnati. I knew Harris as like a highly touted defensive outfielder. That was kind of the gist of his prospect profile, and that maybe he'd figure it out offensively at some point. But yeah, this level of production at the plate is something I don't think anyone expected. He's been terrific for the Braves. Matt Olson has been on like a timely hitting type of heater, 24 RBIs across his last 31 games. So big turnaround for the Braves and back up into my top 5 here near the exact midway point of the season.
Great to see them figuring some things out. Moving on to your big risers of the week. So at number 12, the Philadelphia Phillies climbing up 2 spots from 14. Zach Wheeler, he has lowered his season ERA to 2.66. So definitely a lot better than the 2.78 ERA he had last season when he finished as runner-up in the NL Cy Young Award voting. He's got a 1.67 ERA over his last 12 starts. Not to mention a 1.62 ERA at home and a 1.84 ERA in night games.
Yeah.
That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, they took 2 of 3 from that is crazy. They took 2 of 3 from the Cardinals over the weekend, the Phillies, and they're now 20-9 under interim manager Rob Thompson after starting the season 22-29 with Joe Girardi at the helm. Kyle Schwarber was named NL Player of the Month for June after posting a 10.65 OPS with 12 home runs, 27 RBIs, and 27 runs scored in a span of 27 games last month. Schwarber had a pretty rough go of it in April and May after signing that 4-year, $79 million free agent contract with the Phillies when the lockout ended in March. But yeah, he's turned it on in a massive way and is actually the current National League leader for home runs as we chat here on July 4th with 23 homers. Rhys Hoskins has turned it on too, batting .318 with a 10.90 OPS over his last 129 plate appearances since the beginning of June, 10 home runs in his last 32 games. And you mentioned Zach Wheeler. He went 7 shutout innings in Sunday night's 4-0 win over the Cardinals. That was his 5th scoreless start of 6+ innings this year, which is tied for the most among all MLB pitchers. And you mentioned the numbers. Wheeler has a 2.66 ERA on the season, 99 strikeouts in 88 innings. He's been especially dominant over the last couple of months. Remember, he started the season in a delay. Was it on the IL? Yeah, like a backdated IL stint because of a shoulder injury. that popped up during the spring. And there was some concern, whenever you hear shoulder and pitchers, you worry about the long-term effects. And he was a little bit more mediocre out of the gate, but he's been back to his dominant self lately and could pitch his way into consideration for the Cy Young Award. I know it's a loaded field this year in both leagues. Bryce Harper's out with that fractured thumb. He'll be out until at least mid-August after undergoing surgery last week. But the Phillies are playing good team ball right now. Derek Hall has, 3 home runs in his first 5 major league games. They called him up needing some left-handed power with Harper on the shelf. And now they have an easy 3-game series against the Nationals, which is set to get underway on Tuesday. And then they travel to St. Louis for a 4-game set from Friday through Monday. I have a family friend in town for that one. She lives in Philadelphia, but coming in for it and planning on hitting at least one of those games, hopefully a couple of them. Phillies rise to the number 12 spot this week, jumping over my Cardinals and the Giants.
Oh boy, number 14 is a team I do not talk about quite a bit. It is the Chicago White Sox. Yeah. So really exciting weekend the White Sox had in San Francisco. I was actually at Oracle Park for all 3 of those ball games. That's and awesome. I had a really wonderful time. I've never been to Oracle Park before. Really fantastic sight lines. I had seats just strategically all throughout the ballpark and just really loved the atmosphere, the time there. Giants fans were great. I was very amused by the hot dog vendors outside the ballpark. I did not get a hot dog, though. They will wrap it in bacon and also put all sorts of vegetables and other toppings on it. But anyway, overall, a very exciting ballpark experience in San Francisco. But anyway, as for the White Sox, Leury Garcia was looking like
you do not stand for the San Francisco hot dog. Yeah.
Now heading on to the White Sox themselves, Leury Garcia was looking like the worst hitter in baseball up until this weekend. And I joked that his weighted runs created plus might hit 50 after this weekend. He did come up big this past series. Also, Dylan Cease was named AL Pitcher of the Month in June, recorded a 30.33 ERA, 45 strikeouts, and a 192 opponent's batting average. So plenty of great things I saw overall from the White Sox this past weekend. Really loved to see Cease as well as Lucas Giolito returning to form, as well as Lance Lynn too. But otherwise, a really fantastic week the White Sox have had.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little while since we talked about your White Sox. They've been hovering in the middle portion of these rankings since an early fall out of the top 10. But yeah, they rise 2 spots this week from number 16 to number 14, moving up past the Guardians and also the Giants, who, they just swept out at Oracle Park, and Janice was in attendance. So she gets the credit or something like that. I don't know.
Plus increases.
Yeah,
I think I'm sitting at 100. Yeah, I am right at average production level.
Makes sense. Yeah, I know the Guardians are currently above the White Sox in the AL Central standings, so I might take some Twitter guff from Cleveland fans, but I do really believe that the White Sox are the better team of the two and the most likely team to catch up to the Twins and what should be an interesting finish down the stretch for that divisional crown. You kind of explained everything that I was going to explain. Dylan Cease was terrific. He's been terrific going on his last 7 starts back to late May. A 0.46 ERA over his last 7 outings dating back to May 29th. And I think, Lucas Giolito looking more like himself lately is almost even more important than how Cease has pitched. They need him to be Lucas Giolito in the second half. Lance Lynn seems to be rounding into better form coming off that tendon repair in his knee. He went 6 shutout innings Friday. Just a really good, impressive series overall out on the West Coast. Eloy Jimenez could return later this week from the severe right hamstring strain that has kept him out since late April. Liam Hendricks was activated from the IL on Monday after missing 3 weeks with a mild forearm strain. All in all, this is starting to look like the team that we expected to see coming into the year. I know they're still under 500, but getting healthier, posting better on-field results. I think the White Sox have a good, long, successful run in them. And I mean, they kind of need that. to get to the top of the AL Central, but it's kind of anyone's division outside of the Royals and Tigers. I think it's going to be probably a 3-team race down the stretch, and I would pick the White Sox if you made me pick a team right now that's going to finish as the division champ. Yeah, as we mentioned before, big series against the AL Central leading Twins beginning on Monday night.
Absolutely. And they're currently behind the Twins 2-1, bottom of the 7th. It looks as if Jose Abreu might have gotten hit by a pitch. Last year, Abreu led the league in being hit by a pitch, but it looks as if, it might have just missed his jersey. It looks as if from the replay, it just kind of just like gently brushed it. So that is currently the discourse that's currently happening on field right now.
Up to date.
Absolutely, very up to date. They're currently reviewing that. But moving on to number 7, rising 2 spots to number 17, the Seattle Mariners. So Robbie Ray is pretty much looking like himself. We mentioned that Lucas Giolito is looking a lot like himself recently as well. But yeah, he's definitely continuing his dominant stretch. Struck out 12 over 6 2/3. And also Julio Rodriguez is just absolutely mashing at the moment. Hit a solo shot off the first pitch in the bottom of the first off Frankie Montas. That happened Sunday. But anyway, yeah.
You got fireworks going on there?
I do, yes.
Yeah, we do too. This is going to be the worst audio recording in our history.
Yeah. The only thing that will be difficult is whether the fireworks are coming from my feed or your feed. But for me, it's very audible, and yeah, I can just hear them popping off just right outside my neighborhood. I live in the Bridgeport neighborhood of Chicago, and Bridgeport is very known for people shooting off fireworks for some reason. I don't know why, but like we just love our fireworks here. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, same around here. They've been going off since last night. It seemed like really late in the night too. But yeah, whatever. It's baseball's fault for making us do a podcast on the night of July 4th. So if the audio is bad, it's Rob Manfred's fault. But yeah, the Mariners are one of our biggest risers for the second straight week. They've won 5 of their last 6 games and 11 of their last 14 entering Monday's series opener at San Diego. And I think they were up big in that one. Yep, 8-0 in the bottom of the 9th. So chalk up another victory for the Mariners. You mentioned Robbie Ray put together that terrific start Sunday against the A's, 12 strikeouts over 6 2/3 innings of 1-run ball. He's posted a 0.80 ERA and 40 strikeouts with just 9 walks over his last 33 2/3 innings going back to June 12th. Ray's season ERA was 4.97 4 weeks ago. Now it's down to 3.62. And most importantly, his command has been in check. That's the story with Robbie Ray and kind of always has been. When he doesn't issue free passes, he's an ace. His 27 swing and misses on Sunday were the second most by a Mariners pitcher in the pitch tracking era. So since 2008, James Paxton had 31 swing and misses in a start in 2018. Julio Rodriguez was named AL Rookie of the Month for June and has a 942 OPS with 11 home runs, 27 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, and 30 runs scored in his last 41 games dating back to May 21st. This is illuminating. So Julio Rodriguez right now ranks first among all AL rookies in homers, RBIs, stolen bases, OPS, slugging percentage, hits, extra base hits, runs scored, total bases, weighted runs created plus. He's also first overall at Fangraphs version of wins above replacement. He's the fastest player in MLB history to reach 15-plus homers and 20-plus stolen bases. Got there in his first 81 career games, surpassing Ellis Burks, who did it in 82 games, and Barry Bonds, who did it in 90 games. An absolute superstar in the making at age 21. And the Mariners are finally starting to meet expectations. Now only 3 games back of 500, I guess about to go to 2 games back of 500 after dropping to a season low 10 games under the 500 mark at one point, like 3 weeks ago in the middle of June, and just 5 games back right now in the AL wildcard hunt. So keep an eye on Seattle with the second half approaching. Up to number 17 in these rankings from the number 21 spot 2 weeks ago, number 19 last week. a team on the move with probably a very active trade deadline ahead, given the tendencies, the wheeling and dealing tendencies of general manager Jerry Dipoto.
Right, that does it for your big risers of the week. Let's move on to your big fallers of the week. Now, before I go on to the big fallers, I do have an update on the Jose Abreu hit by pitch scenario. It was ruled that he was not hit by the pitch. But however, he did just hit a ground rule double and is now standing at second base. I think being on second base is a lot better than being on first.
I would agree.
Also, yeah, definitely I agree there. And also, too, yeah, you don't have the bruise from a 98-mile-an-hour fastball on your shoulder. So definitely a great outcome for Mr. Abreu. All right, so going back to your big fallers of the week, the San Diego Padres fall 2 spots to number 7. They dropped 3 games to the rival Dodgers over the weekend, and they've also lost 9 straight in Los Angeles overall. Dodger Stadium is not very hospitable to the Padres. But otherwise, they're currently 47-34. Definitely impressive considering that they've dealt with a lot of injuries. And Fernando Tatis Jr. has yet to play a game, and I believe he's still 5th in NL voting for the All-Star game too. So,
yeah, he's a popular player. Yeah, I've been thinking for a while that the Padres might fall into a bad rut. They've mostly managed to avoid doing that, despite some obvious holes on the roster with injuries and underperformance. And I don't know, we might be in the midst of that downturn right now. They did avoid getting swept by the Dodgers over the weekend, as we mentioned, with a 4-2 win in the finale of that 4-game series. But the Padres have lost 6 of their last 8 games and 7 of their last 10 as of Monday evening, falling 3.5 games back of Los Angeles in the NL West standings. They were tied with the Dodgers for first place exactly 2 weeks ago. Much of this has happened with Manny Machado out of the lineup. That was for a 10-day period at the end of June with that ankle injury that probably in retrospect should have led to an injured list stint, but he did not go on the IL, and he is back in action now to try and help right the ship for San Diego. I saw that he actually left Monday night's game early, maybe with a re-aggravation of that ankle. I mean, hopefully not. I know it's kind of a blowout there against the Mariners, so we'll find out about that. Check our player news page for any updates. The timeline for Fernando Tatis Jr.'s season debut keeps getting pushed back. Now looking at late July or even probably early August after another follow-up CT scan on his surgically repaired left wrist showed a better degree of healing. But he'll continue to ramp up his baseball activity. At last check, Tatis was just doing dry swings, but also a good amount of defensive work, some of that in the outfield. It's not clear yet whether he's going to return at shortstop or in the outfield, but there's still time to sort that out, and we'll get a clearer picture whenever he heads out on a minor league rehab assignment, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks. But I don't know, that he's not like even really hitting at full strength or hitting batted balls yet makes me think it's going to be even longer than that. Essentially, the Padres traded spots with the Braves this week, Atlanta rising to number 5 in my rankings, and the Padres dropping down past the Brewers to number 7. Not a terrible place to be in the top 7, but probably more reflective now of where both of those teams should rank at the moment.
At number 15, falling 2 spots, the San Francisco Giants. Like we mentioned earlier, they were swept by the White Sox over the weekend. I noticed just some really very terrible defensive miscues overall. Bullpen, too, also definitely showed huge weaknesses there. Lamont Wade Jr. did homer on his bobblehead day. So he took Dylan Cease's second pitch of the game and just launched it, and also made a really terrific catch during that game, too. But otherwise, this is following a 2-6 homestand against 3 teams with losing records. So it's the Reds, Tigers, and White Sox. The Giants have now lost 10 of their last 13 games, and currently 8.5 games behind the first place Dodgers in the NL West.
Did you get that bobblehead?
I did, actually. I can even grab it right now.
Yeah, grab it.
Here is the bobblehead. But what's funny is that a Giants employee actually asked me if I wanted this, and I'm like, yes, of course I want it. I love bobbleheads in general. I think they're camp and kitschy.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Because you had your Sox gear on, they assumed you didn't want it?
Yes. But anyway, he is now sitting next to my Tyler Glass now and Tim Anderson bobbleheads. So great addition to the collection.
Yeah. I mean, similar to what I said about the Padres, that they were playing really well despite some holes on the roster. I think the same can be said and more about this Giants team, and it really has come crashing down lately, with just 3 wins over their last 14 games. They lost again on Monday. They split a 2-game series with the Tigers last week, and then, as we mentioned before, got swept by the White Sox in a 3-game series at home in San Francisco, where Janice was serving as our official podcast correspondent. That means you can write off your travel costs to NBC, probably.
I will be submitting an invoice.
Just not the bar tabs, probably. But yeah, Giants manager. Giants manager Gabe Kapler was pretty blunt about the team's recent play at the end of that weekend sweep. He said, I have the quote, "I don't think that we've brought our best levels of energy to the ballpark over the course of the last couple of weeks. And when that happens, I think it's important to examine where we're spending our energy." So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he meant by that, but I think there's some turmoil in that clubhouse with how they've played lately. Anthony DeSclafani is officially out for the rest of the season following ankle surgery that will require 4 to 5 months of rehab. He was a big part of the surprise push to the NL West title last year for the Giants and that franchise record regular season win total of 107. He had a 3.17 ERA in 31 starts last season. This year, DeSclafani made only 5 starts, covering 19 innings with a 9.95 ERA. So that has really hurt their starting pitching depth. David Villar got the call from AAA Sacramento ahead of Monday's series opener in Arizona. Maybe rebound. He's 25 years old, plays all over the infield. Had a 1043 OPS with 21 home runs and 62 RBIs in 66 games this season at the AAA level. And I think had a nice debut. I lost that box score, but yeah, Giants infielders are currently slashing a combined 233, 312, 381. That's a 693 OPS and more than 1,500 plate appearances. So worth giving VR a look, and it's probably going to take some maneuvering for offense and pitching help at the deadline to ensure that this team can try to compete for a wild card spot. I just don't really see it with this roster. And I didn't really see it even when I put them into the top 10, but yeah, it feels right that they're now down at number 15 this week.
At number 20, falling 2 spots, the Texas Rangers. But anyway, the Mets dropped the weekend series, or the Rangers dropped the weekend series to the Mets. They are now 37-40. So once again, missing an opportunity to get to 500 for the first time since May 31st.
I feel like we talk about the Rangers too much on this show, but
We do.
The format. Yeah, I know we talk about them like every other week, but yeah, that's the way we kind of plan this, to talk about the biggest risers and biggest fallers. And it's been a season of rising and falling in Arlington, Texas. A brutal April after their very active offseason of spending, then a really good May. And now they are 13-17 since the beginning of June, kind of settling into what we thought they would be. A little more exciting than recent past years with the talent they brought in, but not particularly close to contention. And really this week, the fall has a lot to do with the Mariners and Marlins both moving up. We could have talked about the Marlins on this show too. They moved up 2 spots, and Sandy Alcantara is on an incredible role, like baseball's premier workhorse right now. I don't have a ton to add on the Rangers. Marcus Semien has been much improved over the last month, but Corey Seager's been pretty mediocre relative to what the Rangers paid him. Both of those guys pretty mediocre overall, considering about $500 million went into their pockets this winter. Overall, the Rangers are 20th in combined team OPS with a mark of 693, middle of the pack in team ERA. Martin Perez has come back to earth over his last couple of outings. They lost 7-6 on a walk-off hit by pitch from Matt Moore on Monday in Baltimore, which is kind of embarrassing. Yeah, falling to number 20 in the rankings this week from 18th last week. And I don't see them rising much over the rest of the season. I think they're probably going to shed some parts of the trade deadline and figure out a new kind of blueprint in the offseason. That'll do it for this week's show. Sorry about the fireworks and the electrical problems, but thanks for tuning in. Check out the full Power Rankings column. Goes up every Tuesday on NBC Sports Edge. Rankings, observations on all 30 teams. Rate and review the Circling the Bases podcast. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Drew Silv. Janice is at Scuriosa. And peace out.